Mark 1 Fiat Punto. So at one point you would just walk straight past one of these and not bat an eyelid, but in 2024 they're actually becoming super rare. So stay tuned to find out what I think of this one. I'm Chris and this is Retro Ratchet. If you're enjoying my videos, please remember to subscribe. At the moment, we're 1,929 subscribers. Let's try and hit that 2,000 by the end of March. It's really important on small channels like this to get your subscriber count up. Right, let's get started. Firstly, it's hard to believe that the Mark 1 Punto has been on the roads for 30 years. It just seemed like yesterday when they were actually released. So launched into the UK in very early 1994, they replaced a trusty old Uno. The Uno sold in massive numbers worldwide, so it had quite a lot to live up to. A year later, in 1995, it went on to win the European Car of the Year award. So this shape, Mark 1, ran all the way up to 1999. It was replaced by the Mark 2. They do look a little bit similar, but interestingly, there was actually 80% of parts that were different on the newer model. So we've got 3 different body styles. We've got the 3-door like this one, 5-door and a cabrio, and we initially had 6 different engine options, so quite a wide range. Bottom of the range was the 1.1 fire engine badged as a 55, which is what this one is. Then we had a 1.2 in 2 different forms, badged as a 60 and a 75, and the difference between those was one was single point injection, one was multi-point injection. Then we had a 1.6 badged as a 90. We had the GT Turbo 1.4, and then we had a super rare, well, what I guess will be super rare now, 1.7 turbo diesel. So if you happen to have any of those, put in the comments because it would be nice to see one of them. So according to an April 1995 What Car magazine, the list price for one of these new would have been £7,486, and that's with no options. So thinking back, I don't know whether that was good or bad at the time. It was probably pretty reasonable because they did sell in big numbers. Right, so let's get into a walk around in this and see what this one's really like. Okay, so what's our first impression overall when we stand back and take a look at this particular one? There has been a fair amount of paintwork on it, some of it not to a great standard. The wing has had paintwork. It does look a little bit matte in appearance, so I think that needs lacquering and doing again. But rust-wise, there doesn't appear to be any major areas of concern on this one so far. You can see there are lots of little dents. From what I've read, quite a large proportion of the body panels and underside of these was actually galvanised from the factory, so these fared a lot better than the Uno did for rust resilience over the years. And I guess looking at this one, you can see why, yeah. I mean, back arches, original spot welds, so that's nice to see. Moving around to the back and the tailgate. Tailgate's in decent condition. Somebody's painted that the wrong colour though, so I'll definitely be getting that one back to silver, I think. The bumpers have been painted at some point. It's always difficult painting plastic bumpers and trying to make them look original. These are a wee bit darker, I think, than they should be, but there's not a great deal you can do about that. And then round to the passenger side, pretty much the same thing. There's no rust standing out, there's loads of little dents and stuff. Again there, a wee dent on the quarter, scratch and stuff, but looking down that arch, it does appear to be original. I'm not an expert in these, but I can see the spot welds, so I wouldn't imagine that that is full of filler, but that is nice to see. And then looking straight along the car, it is very tidy. Sills are good, they appear to be original. Front wing, I have had there's several dents on there along the way. You can see it is badly rippled everywhere down there too, but no major rust. And then coming round to the nose, it's very tidy. Bonnet looks pretty good as well. There isn't a massive amount of stone chips in that. Like I was saying about that front end, that does look a wee bit too dark to me for that bumper. It's a wee bit, I think they were grey rather than black. But regardless, I think it's a pretty good example. Wheels. So we've got original steel wheels, even looks like original SX wheel trims on them. Tiny 13-inch, as we found out when we took it for a run today. There isn't a great deal of grip off with these. Right, let's see how it drives. So first impressions getting in it, like new. That's the first thing that's going through my mind at the moment. And doesn't feel as old as a car from the 90s. But, right, let's get going. Seat adjusted. And that was a cold start. Oh, it doesn't want to go. It is very cold here. It's about 3 degrees, so I'll forgive it that. Right, that's not so bad now. Maybe just didn't want to be woken up. Right, let's get out of here. I must remember there's no power steering in these yet. So there has to be a lot of turning to get this out of here, even though it's a very small car. That's fine, we are out. Right, so let's talk about the engine then. So it's a 1.1 8-valve fire engine, putting out 53 brake horsepower, 55 PS, 63 pounds-foot of torque, which I guess those are pretty low numbers, but when you consider the curb weight of this car, it's only 865 kilos. So manages to hustle along all right for what it is, so it's not too disappointing. What you have to remember is back in the early 90s, to have 55 brake horsepower in, just a small hatchback like this was perfectly normal. So in What Car's April 1994 edition, they stated the 0 to 60 time was 16.5 seconds and a top speed of 93, which again sounds pretty reasonable for one of these. So what are we noticing when we're driving it? Idle seems a little bit high on this one. Now the car's totally warmed up. It seems to be just under 1,000. Maybe that's normal. Put in the comments. Let me know. Clutch is certainly strong on this one. Reasonable weight to it. So I reckon it won't be a new clutch that's in it, but 41,000 miles. I mean, it technically could still be original. You never know. Here we've got a 60 mile an hour zone coming up. We'll see what the acceleration's like in it without going wild. Yeah, so I mean, it's all right, gets there. Actually a little bit livelier than I expected it to be. I think a lot of that is probably due to the very short gearing, and obviously the very light curb weight. So brakes, obviously non-ABS in this one, not much pedal travel till they bite, but they work. They're quite predictable. You're not having to press them and wait a while until you get a bite out of the pedal. So gearbox, what do you think of the gearbox? Typical Fiat. It's a little bit notchy when you get into the gears. It has loosened up somewhat since the engine's heated up, which is great. Yeah, I mean, it's smooth. I actually find it reasonably precise. There doesn't look like a lot of wear. You're looking at that gearbox, yeah, I mean, it's the gear stick itself isn't flopping about all over. So I actually think that's pretty decent. I mean, just running through those gears there. Yeah, I quite like that actually. And on a country road like this, you're not pressing on that much. And it's actually decent to drive. It's pretty good fun. You can certainly feel everything that's going on beneath the tyres, that's for sure. I do have to remember to slow down a lot more for corners with these skinny tyres, and the roads are damp today. Yeah, I think it handles all right, for what it is. It's never going to be a race car, but there's no noises off it. There's no clunks or bangs or anything like that. So I imagine there's probably very little wear and tear on the suspension components. Keeping an eagle eye on that engine temperature gauge though. It is sitting just above the half mark. Again, I don't know if that's normal for these. So you do notice when you're driving it, you've got this great big expanse of glass around you. Visibility around the car is excellent. You do sit quite high in this one. This one does have the adjustable seats in it, which is no bad thing. The seating position, I think, yeah, it's actually all right for me. I'm quite short, as you've noticed, so I can fit in any car. Only little gripe I've got when I'm driving it, and it is a minor one, and it's just more a thing about cars of this era and this size, is the pedals are very, very close together. Again, I don't really have big feet either, but I've clipped the clutch rest a couple of times when I put the clutch down, and I'm super close to the brake as well when I'm on the accelerator, but that's no big deal really. But that's my only dislike so far in the short time that I've been driving it. I think it drives very nicely, as long as it doesn't overheat. That'll not be impressive. The engine in this one, it's very quiet. There's not a massive amount of noise intrusion into the cabin. So again, I'm pretty surprised about that. I thought it would have been quite a bit worse actually, quite a bit noisier and more rattly. But yeah, it's not too bad. This one seems reasonably well screwed together. So what are my thoughts when I'm driving it? What's summing it up? A nice, easy to live with town car. Super easy just to manoeuvre around cities, speed humps, tight streets, getting it parked in supermarket car parks. I think it's great for that kind of thing. And even on the open road, it's reasonably pleasant to drive on those country lanes. Obviously, it's not a sports car. You're not going to get a thrill out of the acceleration, but it does what it's meant to do very well, I think. Right, let's take a look at this interior, and it is actually pretty exceptional. So there's your view when you first open the door. I mean, look at that. It's like stepping back into 1995, isn't it? Look at the condition of those seats. Headrests, plastic trims around here. I have to say, it is pretty much time warp inside. And that was the height adjustable seats that the SX got. And the door trims do appear to be in spectacularly good condition. A wee bit way around there where people have opened it, but nothing much you can do about that. There's electric window controls. Even your steering wheel, check that out. Looks like new. But when you look under here, yeah, I mean, look at that. Carpet is like brand new, same with that rubber mat. That is impressive. Now, passenger seat, that is very much the same story. Immaculate. Looking down the centre console here. Yeah, it's all like new. Let's have a wee look in the back. Again, seats are mint. Trim's mint, as are the carpets and the plastics. So that is nice to see. And it actually is reasonable size-wise. I had a 6-year-old in there earlier and he seemed to get on okay. So this is what I was mentioning earlier about how close together these pedals are. See, that's your clutch rest there, and you can just clip it. There's hardly any space. Switch gear, there's a wee bit wear on that switch gear, I think, with just the lights being turned and indicator being put on and off, because the other side is much better condition. Under there we have the control for the height adjustable front headlights. Hazard switch in there, which does light up when it's on. It's a bit faded though. We have a digital clock up there. I never actually noticed that earlier. Yeah, so it's packed full of stuff, this one. Even these are in great condition. Moving on to the centre console here. One thing I do like about these is you have the second set of vents that go a little bit higher up, and then you have those ones there. So there's good ventilation into the car, which I found out earlier when I was driving it. You've got the front fog light, rear fog light, and heated rear windows. I think they became standard on the SX, those front fog lights. It's a recirculate function for the heater ventilation, hot and cold obviously, fan controls and directional control. We have unfortunately lost the original radio cassette here, but I guess that's just, so MP3s could be played. There's even mint in there, check that out. Gear stick, quite a tall stick on these. It's not that much wear on the top of it actually. It took me a while to work out that you actually have to push it down in this way towards you for reverse. I thought it was a gearbox fault. So as you'd imagine, the seats are not super comfortable. in terms of, you know, older cars where you tend to sink down. They are quite firm, so they've not worn much, which is good. Support isn't too bad. I mean, obviously I only had a short drive today. I wasn't in it for 3 or 4 hours down the motorway, so I don't exactly know what it'd be like in the long run. But you know, you've got your headrest. You've got quite a lot of adjustments in this one. You pull this little lever up on the right here, oh, and the top comes off. Sorry, I'll put that back on. Pull that lever up, and that gives you your height control on the seats. Try and make sure that thing doesn't come off again. For me, yeah, we needed it as high up as possible so I could see over the steering wheel. This steering wheel actually adjusts on this one, so you've got your height adjustment, which is good. So that's pretty decent for me there. Yeah, so just you don't have the reach adjustment, just the rake, but that's fine. Everything's in pretty good reach, in fact. You know, your basic controls, your heater controls there, your stereo. I'm not having to stretch out for anything. You know, window controls, you can set your arm on that armrest, control those windows there. So yeah, I mean, it's very easy going, easy to live with, easy to get on with. There doesn't seem to be any strange design features, you know, you're having to reach for this or reach for that, or you can't see this gauge, that kind of stuff. One of my favourite things in cars is dashboards. I've always had a thing for car dashboards. As a kid, I used to draw them, so there's a bit of a fascination going on there. So what we're going to do is see what this one's like when it starts up. We've got the extra rev counter here as well, which the S model didn't have. I don't think the S had a temperature gauge either. Right, so there's our warning lights. It sounds reasonably sweet actually. The idle is a little bit over the place, it's not massively, but considering its age, yeah, it's just a wee bit up and down. But I don't think it's a particularly noisy engine, this one. Certainly when I was driving, there wasn't any nasty noises. 1.1 fire engine. I mean, to be fair, it's a pretty decent engine. They sold them in big numbers. So let's have a wee look round here. There's a few things I notice straight away about it. Well, let's start with access. I mean, that's huge. I mean, the engine's been on. I've had it out for a run. And I can get my arms right down to the bottom of the car without burning anything or getting oil on my jumper. I think condition's pretty good on this one. Yeah, I mean, look at that. You didn't have any rust on those strut tops. Around the slam panel. That strut top's pretty good as well. Can't really see the bulkhead. I don't know if there's rust in there. There's something going on in there. I will ask the owner later what that one's about. Sorry mate, we'll have to take the piss out of this a little bit, or probably quite a lot. I'm not sure what's going on here. We have, I think, I don't know, is that a belt? Yeah, that looks like a belt, and we have some brown power cable, so that's nice. And a block of wood. Let me know if you want me to sort that for you at some point. That's the only thing that actually lets it down. Tiny wee oil leak down there. So put in the comments if you've had any experience of working on these for the last 10, 20 years. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So now we're reaching the end of this review. Tell me in the comments what you think. For me, I was actually pleasantly surprised. You know, the condition of that, it looks like a solid old car. Low mileage, this one. The interior is, you know, time warp. I thought it drove like a much more modern car than a 1994 built vehicle. You could easily drive this 2024 as just a modern day kind of retro car. So I think these are one to watch. I think values will be rising because they're so rare. GT turbo ones are definitely on the rise. You pay good money for a sorted one of those now. And it's definitely something, you know, you could consider just running about in as a cheap retro car that's hopefully reliable. So I think if you did buy one, they're very, very easy to live with. Parts will be cheap for them as well. Fiat parts tend not to be that expensive. I think they're reasonably reliable. Yeah, there was a head gasket work on it, but to be fair, it is a 30-year-old car. But overall, you know, maybe we need to look for a GT Turbo for the channel. Maybe to buy or just to review. Tune in next time to see. Thanks again.
Please like and subscribe.
See you all next time.